Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fat Man Little Trail, the podcast where everyone is invited on this journey. I am your host, Greg, the Fat Man. Want to thank again everybody who's supported the podcast so far. I'm on a bunch of the different platforms, so if you see it and you like it and you listen to it, go ahead and leave a review or like and share to as many people as you can. I appreciate it. If you don't like it, then just keep your mouth to your shut. Also, if you want to help support the podcast and help me maybe get some theme music or something like that, if you want to make a donation, I have a link in my bio for that. Even 99 cents a month would go a long way in helping out, bringing you the content that you enjoy. Well, I want to get right into my chewing the fat segment today. And 2021 is coming to an end, and we are looking to our goals of 2022. And a lot of people are looking for a little bit of that dream. They want to travel more, they want to do things that are a little bit more exciting, and my guest today has been doing that for the last few years. I want to introduce you guys to Yazz runs the website thestrawberrysnaps.com, and she's a travel blogger. Yazz, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. As Greg said, I'm Yazz, and I'm the host of the Strawberry Snaps on WordPress. So I'll be here to talk about Europe.
And I was going to say, you sound like you're from maybe Philadelphia or something. I can't pin down the accent. Tell me, where are you from? And a little bit of your background. You traveled a lot as a kid too, didn't you?
Yeah, so I'm from the UK. I am British. I was born and raised in Cambridge in the UK. So I feel like my accent is quite a generic UK one, quite easy to understand, I think. But yes, I have two parents who are from abroad. So my dad is Turkish and my mum is Russian. So when I was a kid, I was doing a lot of traveling back and forth with them to see my wider family who live in Turkey and Russia.
Very cool. And did you also spend some time in the United States growing up?
Yes, so I went to university in the US. I was in Massachusetts, which I absolutely loved. My undergraduate degree was based a lot on like America. So I did American studies and law. So that's why with my degree, they allowed me to actually come to the US for a while to go to university there, which I absolutely loved. When anyone tells me what's it like, I always tell them that it reminds me of High School Musical because there's just so much going on. Everyone is, happy there, really friendly. So that's what it reminds me of for sure.
Well, so you went to school in Massachusetts. Did you get to explore around a little bit of the states as well?
I tried. I think I was a little bit surprised at how expensive it was to travel domestically
Mhm.
from state to state. I did spend Thanksgiving in the South when I was in the US for that year because I actually went to meet my online friend, which was amazing because, when I was in the US, I was like, well, it's now or never, otherwise I'd never meet her. She was from Arkansas. So for Thanksgiving, the university, they closed a lot of the rooms. So it meant that I had to find somewhere to stay. And it was just perfect timing that she mentioned, well, why don't you come to the South and why don't you celebrate Thanksgiving with me? And I loved that. So the main place that I went to was the South to be with her there in Arkansas. I did travel to a few states. I went to New York briefly and Connecticut as well. But I was a little bit surprised with how expensive it was to travel domestically. And as a college student at that time, it was quite difficult for me to
Sure.
travel there.
Now that brings up a whole nother bag of worms here. A Southern Thanksgiving as your first Thanksgiving in the States. What was your favorite dish that they served?
Oh, do you know what? It has to be for me the sides, like any
Mhm.
types of side dishes. Like, of course, like the meat was great and the veggies were great, but I think it was like the mac and cheese. Like, I loved it. And I know that's a bit controversial because people say, is it a good, side dish for Thanksgiving? Is it not? But for me, that was something which I was hooked on from the
That
beginning.
that's the best part of American Thanksgiving is like every family has their own traditions and their own side
Right.
dishes and their own different things. So like some places you'll have collard greens, some places you'll have mashed potatoes, mac and cheese. It doesn't matter. I
Love
love the food, so I'm all for it. So how long have you been doing this travel and the blogging for the Strawberry Snaps?
So I took my first solo trip when I was 18 years old, which in hindsight seems very young when I think about it now. But I was, in my first year of university. I received my student loan. Like all students at the time, I was thinking, what's the first place or the first thing that I can spend it on? And then I was like, why don't I just book a holiday to Italy? I decided on going to Italy because it was just a flight which came up, which fitted in with the times that I could do. So it was for a weekend, and I was like, that's perfect. I could probably get back to class on a Monday, so no one would even know. I didn't tell anyone, which I probably should have at the time, but I just, booked that flight and went. And from there, I just started to solo travel. I really enjoyed it. I thought, this is something that I can see myself doing. So I started to do it more and more during that year. And then it continued and it continued. And I started my blog probably about 2 years later after that. I was probably about 20 or 21 when I started my blog. And it turned into like a bit of a diary. So I would write about things, places that I went to. Didn't realize that people were even reading it. Like I wasn't even concerned about building a blog at that point. And then people started to like comment and interact with me. And I was thinking, hang on a minute, this is actually something that people are reading and enjoying. So I started to continue, posting a little bit more. And it was only really in the last year or so that I was thinking I could probably help people with solo travel, with building a blog, and just be in there so that people have the resource in me that I can give to them.
Well, and one of the things that I like about your blog is everything is really short. Like it's not a 40-page read. It's, what do you say? They're all under like 2 minutes to read or something like that?
Yeah, 2 or 3 minutes. And I'm really glad that you've noticed that, because I just wanted to be a little bit different. And I'm just thinking, sometimes when you see blogs and they're quite long and it's hard to know where to go, or sometimes you feel a bit overwhelmed with the content that's out there. So I just try to keep things really short, really sweet, really simple, straight to the point, so that readers can just kind of pick it up, get that information into their heads, and then continue with their day. So I'm really happy that you noticed that, because it's kind of something that stuck with me quite early on when I was doing my blogging.
And what types of tips and advice are you giving on the website?
So at the beginning, it was things like, how to pack light, or, how to find the cheapest flight, or how to travel on a budget. But then it started to turn into topics such as, how to start a blog in 2022, because I know a lot of people think that it's an oversaturated market, or they think that maybe it's too late to become a blogger. And I completely disagree. I mean, I think if this year has taught us anything, people have, grown huge platforms just in the last year by doing something different or trialing something out. So I would really encourage anyone who is thinking about starting a blog to just go for it. Honestly, there's always room. Everyone has a completely different personality. Everyone can bring something completely different to their blog.
That is a wonderfully nice UK version of that. I will tell you, if you want to start a travel blog, it's a wonderful idea. Outdoor blogs, the market's full. Everybody stop, because I'm tired of the competition. There's too many of you out there. No, I'm just kidding. I love it. I absolutely love that everybody is getting out there. And like you said, they're putting their own spin on it. Like, I think everybody has to be unique in it, though. Is yours is, you're the quick hitter, 2 to 3 minute, you get these really good tips really fast, and other people are going to put, kind of like what I do with my hiking blogs. A lot of people do for travel, where they put like 50 pictures on, and they have really long narratives that, to try to tell people everything about a site. So there's always room for different things. Traveling though, like, I mean, you've been traveling a lot. So you said about 4 or 5 years. And as you said, when you first did it, or when you were in America, you noticed how expensive it was to travel in America. But yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of like a misconception for people, that everybody thinks that if you're traveling, it's going to cost a lot of money. Have you found that it's really expensive, or have you found ways around that?
I think the biggest obstacle for me at first was always kind of like the transport side of things. So the flights. When I'm actually in a location personally, I don't find it expensive. I really don't. I'm not the type of person to kind of go around and tick off a lot of activities, or, engage in a lot of things like that. I prefer to just kind of walk around, see what I feel like doing in the moment, and just interacting with the locals, the local areas, the parks, the nature, all of that type of thing. So for me, it was always really the transport side of things that was expensive. But some ways around it that I found is basically using Skyscanner for everything. Even when I think about trips that I want to take in the future, I will literally just go onto Skyscanner and find like the cheapest flight, and then just go there and, make my decisions from there. And if it's close by, then I would maybe get a train to somewhere else. So for me, that's definitely been one way around it.
So, and I'm not aware of this website, and your audio broke up just a little bit. I think you said skyscanner.com. Is that the website? And
yes,
and is that just kind of is that just a discount flight site?
So it kind of compares the different airlines and the different prices that they have. But the reason why I love it so much is that you can select a whole month and you can just, be completely flexible with the dates and you can click like go anywhere. And rather than a destination, it will bring up the prices of, different flights that you can take and, the different options for airlines as well. And it will just compare them really. I never really book directly on Skyscanner. I would take the cheapest airline and then go onto their actual website to book it. But it's just good for inspiration because sometimes I find places which I've never even thought about before, and I'm thinking, okay, why don't I go there? So that's kind of what I use Skyscanner for.
That's really interesting to me. So instead of picking a destination first and then the dates, you just kind of pick dates and then whatever is the cheapest, that's where you're going to go, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Because I think that way as well, I can explore places which I would never really think about doing or never really think about going to. For example, not too long ago, I booked a flight to Canada, and Canada was a place which it wasn't top of my bucket list for no specific reason. I just
Mhm.
wanted to explore other places in Europe first, but I found a really cheap flight, and I was like, okay, let me just go to Canada. Why not? So I really like using that website because it's just given me so much inspiration to places that I probably wouldn't have, visited before or had in my mind at the time.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't even know about that. So that's a brilliant way to go about it of just finding the dates and then figuring out where you can go from there. I love that idea. What are some of the other ways that you found to save money? I'm assuming that lodging is the next most expensive part of a trip. So do you have any tips on saving money on lodging?
I really like to use Airbnb. I think the reason why I like to use Airbnb so much is because you can interact with the locals, and I just find that so exciting. I tend to find, Airbnb to be a little bit cheaper than hotels, but I also really like it as well because if you're there for like a week or even a month, they will give you a discount. Normally, the host would normally discount the price for you, so that's quite nice. I mean, it is a little bit annoying that they've got like a lot of cleaning fees and service fees, but I still find it to be cheaper than a hotel. And I also do like to travel off peak as well. I think
Mhm.
that's something which I've only started to do recently, but it has made such a difference because I can maybe go to a hotel, which I don't normally do, for quite a reasonable price. So it works out quite well in that regard.
Well, and that's kind of like the new way to travel with Airbnb and things like that. Whereas hotels are, centrally located in a downtown area or in a, maybe the arts district, but you're kind of stuck in that area. Whereas Airbnbs, you can be anywhere in the city and you're in kind of a local neighborhood. You talked about meeting the locals. Is that your main goal when you travel? Is just to kind of meet people and learn, or are you looking for museums and things like that as well?
I do try to meet the locals as much as possible because I just love learning about different cultures. I love picking up languages. I really enjoy just seeing how people live and just picking up tips or just adapting to the different types of lifestyles out there. I really just enjoy learning and having those conversations. I mean, I am definitely that annoying person on a plane who will talk to you throughout the whole flight. So if you don't like that, then don't sit next to me because I will just talk, talk, and talk. But I just think it's the best way to meet people as well. I've made so many friends from abroad, which has been so lovely because, whenever they're in the UK or whenever they're in the place that I'm in, we would meet up, and it's just so nice broadening the horizons. Like there's so many people out there. So for me, it's just, making friends and learning new things along the way. I really enjoy that. But I have started to visit museums a little bit more recently. I never really was a huge fan of museums. But I am trying to now, go into ones that at least interest me a little bit so that I can just pick up some history or learn something new there as well.
Well, and that's something that I do with my website too. For those of you that, only know me from the podcast, is I go and hike and then I find a locally owned restaurant near one of the hikes because it's to me the best way to learn about the small towns and the areas that I go is to pop into the diner or the cafe and to meet the people and talk to them. Like you learn stuff by driving through the town, but until you sit down and actually talk to them. So I love that idea. Europe typically has more history and more monuments and things like that. So do you think about that when you're traveling? Is it like, okay, if I go to Italy, I can go see the Leaning Tower or something like that? Is that kind of on your mindset too?
Definitely. So I do agree. I think that Europe, there is so much to offer, and there's always something completely different in every European country, which is really lovely. For me, it's actually quite interesting. I think a lot of people will be quite surprised about this, is that I'm a traveler with anxiety. So I do tend to travel and feel quite anxious when doing so. And I think sometimes a lot of people would say things like, oh, but isn't solo travel going to make your anxiety worse? Or are you not going to feel a bit more anxious doing that? But for me, I think just having no plans and arriving to a location and thinking, today I am just going to walk around to the Eiffel Tower, or I am just going to go to, a museum here and a museum there. That's when I would kind of decide, okay, well, then I'll go to see this landmark, then I won't. But if I'm feeling a little bit anxious that day, then I would hold off until maybe the tourists left and it's a little bit more quiet, and then I would just go to see the landmark. So for me, it kind of depends on how I'm feeling, and how busy it is, and all of that type of thing. I mean, I definitely do try to see the landmarks, but it would depend on whether that's going to be, noon when it's a Saturday and everyone is around, or whether I would go maybe like 7 in the morning when it's going to be a little bit more quiet. So
Oh,
that's how
sweet.
I would kind of deal with, it's no worries at all. That's how I would kind of deal with the landmark side of things.
I do want to just take a quick second and say that today's blog is brought to you by Mucinex because I have a cold. They're not paying me. I just have a cold. So I apologize for coughing there. So I want to throw on my totally unlicensed therapist hat for a second. So you have anxiety in your travel when you travel alone, but you're a solo traveler. So
Yeah.
I guess I just have to ask, like, how do you work with that?
So for me, I think with the solo traveling and with the anxiety, it kind of almost helps my anxiety a little bit, because it shows me things like, okay, well, Yasmin, eating alone is not too bad, or if you do this, it's not a big deal, or if you're taking a picture in public, it's okay. And I think maybe doing that in my hometown, like eating alone, or taking a picture in public by myself, it would make me more anxious, because I would think, okay, well, maybe these people have seen me before, maybe they know me. Whereas when you're abroad, no one knows really who you are. Everyone is taking pictures, everyone is eating alone, and that's just something which has really helped me. So I really like solo traveling in that aspect, because it just pushes me to do things that maybe I wouldn't normally do. And I think as well, there is that misconception that if you're solo traveling, you have to be super brave, you have to have everything planned out, you need to know where you're going from A to B to Z, for example. And for me, it's the opposite. I would, go to a place, at least have my accommodation sorted, and then focus on there, like, how am I feeling, what do I feel like doing today? If I'm feeling anxious, then I would buy some food and then go back to eat in the accommodation. If I'm feeling a bit more brave, then I would maybe eat in public. So for me, it's just been challenging me, but in a good way, of kind of knowing what I can do and just continuously pushing myself.
We would either be the best or worst travel companions ever, because my last trip I went out to Utah and saw like 5 different state parks in 6 days. I saw like 5 different state parks and ended up doing 36 hikes, and they were all scheduled down to like the minute. So it's the complete opposite way of how you travel. But I've got to appreciate that, because when you go somewhere, I like that you're not. I think people go and travel and they force themselves to do things even if they're not comfortable with it, and they might not enjoy it at that point. So if you have a minute to take back and just cook yourself dinner in your lodging, then it helps you relax and it helps you get comfortable. Have
Yeah.
you found that since you started traveling alone at 18, have you found that as you get a little bit older, you worry less about what people think about that? Because I mean, at 18 and social media and just like general nerves, you're like, I'm 18, I have to be in a group of people, I have to be popular or whatever. And that had to be hard at 18. Is it getting easier now at 20, however 20 you are?
Yeah, 20, 26. I just turned 26. But yes, I think now I've actually really started to realize that no one actually cares,
Mhm.
what someone is doing. I mean, if I would see someone eating alone, I wouldn't be wondering, oh, why are they eating alone? What are they doing? Who are they waiting for? I just kind of like glance over and be like, oh, okay, cool, they're eating alone, and then just continue with my day. And I started to realize that that was something which probably people thought about me. Like when they would see me eating alone, I don't think anyone would just stand there recording. Do you know what I mean? They would just
Yeah.
kind of get on with their day, and that really helped me. And I think over the years I started to realize that a lot of things don't matter that mattered to me when I was 18. So some other examples would be, making sure that I have packed absolutely everything, because I never know what might happen. Like I used to take with me like a portable iron, which is
Sure.
crazy to even think about now. But you know, I just realized, okay, so if my shirt has one crease or if my trousers have one crease, then it's not a big deal. I don't need to iron absolutely everything. So I definitely have started to pack a bit more light as well. Whereas when I was 18, I would take everything just in case. I would take maybe 5 charges just in case. So that's definitely changed.
I feel like as a hiker, I did the same thing. Everybody who starts out hiking packs a backpack that it weighs like 500 pounds and it's got everything
Right.
under the sun. And then like, as you do it more and more and more, you're like, well, I don't need any of this. So it brings me to a good point. What are some of the things that you've learned that you can get rid of in your pack to make traveling a little bit easier and packing easier?
I think for me, the biggest issue has always kind of been clothing. I would always think, you know, I need so many outfits just in case. And I really started this last year to shop a bit more, maybe ethically and just almost less. Like I would now buy things which are going to last me a long time and that match with everything, which has really helped because then I can just take less, but the clothes that I wear, you can wear them in so many different ways. And I would just take some of those like laundry sachets that you can bring, and I would just, you know, do my laundry there and on the go and have different outfits with, you know, something that combines well with everything. So that has definitely helped me to kind of pack lighter for sure.
Have you gotten to the point where you bring a half a suitcase because you know you're going to fill it up, you're going to buy stuff and fill it up so that you have things from all these different regions?
So it's a funny story actually, but when I was 18 on my first solo trip, I thought that I needed to bring back everything with me. I would go to the supermarket, which I love doing when I'm abroad. I love checking out the supermarkets, but I would go to the supermarket and bring back the most random things that they sell in the UK. Like I'd bring back rice, pasta, chocolate, like random things which I know that I could, you know, purchase in the UK. And I was thinking, you know, I'm going to get fined for bringing over 5 kilograms of rice, which I could probably buy at the supermarket. So for me now, I have definitely kept my souvenirs more minimal now. I definitely just stick with a postcard, nice and easy, nice and simple. Not going to get fined for, for bringing 5 kilograms of rice.
I still like when I go hike. If I go to a state park or a national park, I always buy one of the little patches. You can actually, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see them behind me in the box there. But it was like when I started, it was like I'm going to buy a T-shirt, I'm going to buy a sweatshirt, I'm going to buy this, and then it got down to like, okay, I just want this one little patch because I can't carry any of this stuff anymore. Any other packing tips? I mean, that's always my hardest part when I hike or when I travel is I always pack too much. So what are some other tips if you're packing for a quick trip?
For me, I really like to use like elastic bands to tie up my clothing. So I would roll up my clothing and then, you know, secure it with so many elastic bands so that it stays in like a really small shape. Because I felt like when you just roll your clothes and put it into your suitcase, it kind of does expand a little bit. I don't know how, but it will just kind of expand and lose its shape. And, you know, I really didn't want to use packing cubes or anything like that too much. I kind of just wanted to keep things really minimal. So that's when I would just tie elastic bands over everything. It did lead to like a few more creases, or, you know, some things I wouldn't put elastic bands over if I knew that the fabric was delicate. But for me, it's been the best way because that way when I'm looking for something in my bag, everything is super organized and I can just take out and put in quickly. So that's definitely been a game changer for me. I hope everyone tries it because it makes such a huge difference.
It's a great idea. I haven't even thought of that because I roll my clothes too, and then like you said, somehow they all just expand when they're
They just
in the
expand,
bag.
right?
Yeah, I don't believe in science because of that one thing. So when you're traveling, Europe has a lot more options than the United States. In the United States, you basically fly or you drive, but you guys have trains that go all over the place. What is your favorite? And you have boats between, you know, like the UK and France and stuff. What is your favorite mode of transportation while you're out there?
Um, I would definitely say the airplane because I really love like the whole airport experience. I mean, when I travel with my friends, I annoy them so much because I'm adamant that I have to be there 5 hours in advance purely to do nothing. I don't even know why. Like, I just love the atmosphere of, you know, seeing the most random things at the airport. Like, if you're there at 3 in the morning, you're going to see people eating like huge meals with their friends because it's normal, right? In an airport, anything goes, right? So for me, I just love that whole atmosphere. Or like I love seeing people when they like go on like group trips and they've all got the same t-shirts on, or they're going on like a wedding or something like that. I really just enjoy the atmosphere and it makes me so hyped for the trip. So if I didn't go on an airplane, I'd definitely miss that. I would miss the whole thing. I don't really miss too much the whole, putting everything into clear bags and, passing the controls and all the long lines and everything like that. But for me, the atmosphere at an airport is completely unmatched. So I would always choose a plane if I can travel.
5 hours is a bit much. I'll do like I'm always there like 2 hours early at least, and I love to people watch as well. But 5 hours, that I don't know how you can do that one. Um, so you've talked about a little bit when you're 18, your first trip, you went by yourself and you didn't tell anyone where you're going. That's obviously, I don't think that's something that you would recommend anybody, but he does. Do you have any other good security tips, to travel can get dangerous, especially for a solo person, especially for a younger lady who wants to travel by themselves? What are some of the things security wise that you take into account?
So I would definitely reiterate what you mentioned. I would never advise anyone to like not say where they were going, because it's so important. Like you never know what will happen. I think even if you just tell one or two people where you're at least if they haven't heard from you, then they know which country you're in or which place you're in. So definitely do tell at least someone where you're going. But some other tips I would say is when you're in a hotel, to always kind of just put something under the door. So for me, it would be like a pen, because a pen, like I've always got with me, I can just slide it under the door and it just feels a little bit more secure in that
Mhm.
regard. So I would always make sure that I can slide something under the door, whether I'm in an Airbnb, in a hotel, wherever I am. And also, I think just if I'm arriving to somewhere completely new where I don't speak the language, I will always try to get a morning flight, because it's a lot more comfortable to find your way to your accommodation in the morning when there's a lot of people, rather than arriving at 11 o'clock at night, having to get to your accommodation, not speaking the language. So that's definitely something which I've tried to really emphasize to a lot of people, and just to put focus on myself. If you're unsure where you're going, or if you're going to be doing something which is unusual to you, then go in the morning, because then you can at least have some people around you if you need help.
And you speak a lot of languages, don't you? Don't you? Three or four?
Yes, so with my mum, she taught me Russian when I was younger. And then when I was living in Spain, I learned Spanish and Catalan. And I have been trying to learn a bit of Turkish. I mean, I'm not great, but maybe one day I will get there.
Well, most of us Americans, we only know one very bad dialect of English. So, how hard is it to travel to these different countries where, if you don't know the language, is it accommodating for people that speak English, or?
Um, I think it's a tricky one, because sometimes when you're going to a place and you don't really know the language, or you're not familiar with it, it might stop you from doing a lot of things that you might want to do, because you might want to ask where to go somewhere, but you might feel a bit anxious, or you just feel like, how do I go about this? So for me, I think the best way to do it is just to download Google Translate offline, so that even if you don't have any mobile data, you can still, search up what you need to search up. And I think also as well, just maybe looking at body language of people, like if you're unsure about something, or you want to ask someone something, maybe just, add in some like hand gestures, or just find ways around communicating, because there's so many different ways to communicate. And I think, we place a lot of emphasis on words when actually body language might help as well, or just some signs or anything like that. So that's definitely one way around it, I would say.
That's good advice. I gotta ask, you do all your trips solo. Do you get lonely, or do you feel like you go and you get to meet a lot of people, and it just kind of enriches it even more?
Um, it's a bit of both. So sometimes when I'm like strolling around and like looking at places to go in the evenings, I would see like a lot of people in groups, like having fun, laughing, eating together, like taking photos together. And that's probably when I'd feel a little bit lonely, because I'm thinking, oh, like I'm walking around by myself and there's people like in groups, and I would love that. But most of the time, I really enjoyed being by myself, because it's a time where like I can be in control and just do whatever I wanted to do without feeling guilt, or without feeling like I'm holding anyone back. So
Mhm.
some days I will decide, to wake up super early and to do maybe 10 or 12 different activities in one day. And then another time I might feel like, oh, actually, I just feel like going for a walk today and not really doing too much. And I think if I'm with people, I tend to feel a bit more responsible, because maybe I need to accommodate the fact that they don't want to wake up early, or maybe they don't want to do these activities without a break. So for me, it has its perks, but then sometimes I do feel a little bit lonely in the evening, especially if it's a weekend and I feel like, oh, actually, I really want to go to like a concert or something, but I just feel a little bit anxious to do so. So definitely pluses and minuses there.
Sure. Now, since we've been talking over the last, probably about a year, just emailing back and forth and messaging after we found each other's websites, I've been trying to convince you to become more of a hiker. And you started out hiking and you would go out in basically like a dress and high heels and things like that. This last time on Instagram, you posted a picture and you were hiking. You had decent hiking clothes on, but still no hiking shoes. What is it going to take for me to get you to become a full-blown hiker?
Do you know, I think if I lived in a place which had more hiking opportunities, I would have definitely invested in, the whole hiking gear and probably like all the accessories as well. I just feel that in the UK, I live in a place where there's not really that many hikes. And I feel like, if I buy hiking shoes, would I really wear them or would I take them abroad with me? So that's definitely been something which has kind of been holding me back. I think sometimes people think that I don't want to wear like the hiking shoes just because of how they look. I completely have no problem with like how it looks or anything like that. For me, it's more just space and whether I would remember to bring hiking shoes with me if I went.
Well, I recently went home for Thanksgiving to see my family and stuff, and I had to bring hiking gear, like an extra backpack and shoes and all of that stuff, because I was going to hike while I was out there, and it took up like half my suitcase just to have my hiking gear. So I totally understand that. I didn't know the rubber band trick though, so I'm going to have to do that for the next time. See if that works a little better. I want to talk again about your website, thestrawberrysnaps.com. So you said you started it just kind of as a journal, as a diary, and then people read it. What do you want people to get from the website now?
I think at this point, I would love the website to be a place where people can go if they just need information about anything, whether that be taboo subjects, whether that be topics which people always Google, but there like is a lot of information and they just want something condensed. I've also, recently been pushing for people to go on solo trips. And actually, I had one friend from Instagram who recently went on a solo trip. And I was so happy to see that. I felt like a proud mother when, when people say, oh, I went on my first solo trip. Because I think people realize that in a lot of situations, it's not actually as scary as it seems. And it is definitely very liberating. I mean, obviously, I'm sure that some people have had horror stories with solo travel. And, I have as well. I've had, horrible situations. But I think taking that plunge to doing the solo travel is something which is huge. And I think a lot of people always remember when they've done something alone or their first big trip. So that's what I would love my website to be, a point of call where people can just get, the information really quickly, straight to the point, and have a bit of a chat, on my blog, in the comments. I love speaking to everyone. I love, asking about their plans and just keeping that conversation going. So I really do enjoy the social element of my website as well.
And you also have like an ebook with travel tips on it, don't you?
Yes, so I recently made an ebook for Barcelona. It's basically a condensed version on places to go, where to go to eat, activities that you can do suitable for both people who have been to Barcelona before or someone who's going for the first time. So I've tried to keep it very local based. I've added a lot of insight into where I went or what I would personally recommend, because sometimes I think people will search something online, see a place that's cool, and then when they go there they just feel a bit underwhelmed or it's just not worth the hype. So I've definitely tried to keep it as straight to the point as possible with the guide.
And then you also have an Instagram where you love to talk with people on that. Tell people where to find you on Instagram as well.
Definitely. So I actually have two Instagram accounts. The first one is the Strawberry Snaps, which is kind of like a personal Instagram account, but also a travel one. I've kind of merged the two topics together. But then my second Instagram account, Travel by Strawberry Snaps, is where I basically got condensed versions of my blog posts. So if someone just wants to read through graphics, how to pack light or is duty free worth it or anything about safety, then they could go to that Instagram page and just see within 2 or 3 slides all the information up there, because I just want to keep things very quick and straight to the point. People can screenshot that advice, they can save it on Instagram. So whatever it is that they want to do, they've got that information. It'll take them less than a minute to read.
And is duty free worth it?
Well, that's a whole discussion. But for me, I used to never really buy anything in duty free because I would
Mm.
be like, hang on a minute, is it a case of them bumping up the price? Is it something which is just there to be a tourist trap? But I have started to notice that duty free has a lot of exclusives that
Mm.
maybe high street stores don't have. So for me, that's probably where I would say, if you want something exclusive, and then head to the duty free. But I don't tend to be a big duty free buyer. What about you? Do you tend to buy duty free?
No, I don't travel internationally a lot, so I don't get a lot of the opportunities to buy duty free. I just see they all have lines of liquor, and I was like, that seems like sounds like a good idea in my younger days. But um, I guess my last question before we do the really important quizzes and things like that is, where are you going next?
This is a good question. So I will be going in January to Andorra.
Oh,
Andorra, for anyone who is a little bit unfamiliar with it, is basically just bordering Spain, between Spain and France. So it's known for skiing and duty-free shopping or tax-free shopping. So that's where I'll be headed. I'm really excited to kind of check out everything there. I have been before, but it was very brief, very quick. So it would be nice to spend a bit more time there. And then in May, I'll be going to Canada, which I'm so excited about.
nice. Are you a skier?
No, never. I feel like I can't even ice skate. So even when I'm trying to ice skate, I would just fall over. I get so scared to like remove my hands from the wall on the side that I don't trust myself skiing at all. But I would love to at least, experience it once. I might have to get one of those like child ramps that you can like go on.
That's a
Might
good
have to
idea.
go, might have to do that. I mean, I'll probably be the oldest one there, but has to be done.
Well, like you said, you don't worry about what people think about you anymore. You just do it. So go
Just
and
do it.
enjoy it. Anything else you want people to know about the website?
Just that I try to post regularly on the website, and I have got a post coming out quite soon about what to do in the Canary Islands and the places that I went. Because the reason I went to the Canary Islands was I wanted to investigate what it's like in winter. I mean, it's such a summer location. What is it all about in winter? So
Mhm.
that's going to be coming soon. My thoughts on traveling to a popular summer destination in December. So
Oh, I
that's
love
coming
that
soon.
idea. Very good. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we have the buffet, the rapid fire questions, and a little bit more. So stick with us and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We are talking with Yaz from the strawberrysnaps.com. She's given us a ton of solo travel tips and European travel tips already, but now it's time to get serious. Yaz, are you ready for the buffet, the rapid fire
I am
questions?
ready. I am
Okay,
ready.
here we go. You kind of answered this one already, but we're going to do it anyways. When you
Okay.
travel, are you more of a camper, a glamper, or a hotel person?
Oh, I would probably say Glamper here. Definitely for sure.
All righty.
Yeah. I
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I really love just having access to different things. Even if I don't use them, I just like knowing that they're there.
Sure. What is your go-to snack on a plane?
Oh my goodness. I love anything sweet. So any type of like gummy sweets or just anything sour is my favorite. Sour Patch Kids, I love them.
What is the first thing that you eat when you get to your new destination?
Again, probably something sweet, maybe like a chocolate bar or something.
So this isn't part of the rapid fire, but when you travel, are you looking for like bakeries and things like that, or are you looking for like the nice restaurant type of thing, or just kind of the cafe on the corner?
I'm definitely the type of person to go straight to the supermarket and just pick out anything that I think looks really interesting. I'm not really like a fancy person when it comes to food or anything like that. No, I'll eat anything.
Fair enough. If you could be anywhere in the world right now, would you rather be in a forest, on a mountain, or at a beach?
I would probably say mountain for sure. Because with a mountain, I feel like there's so much to explore.
What is the favorite country you've ever visited?
Oh, probably the US. I loved my time there.
I feel like the US is so big, like compared to Europe and UK and stuff,
Yeah.
is that like we have a little bit of everything. So if you come visit here, you've got the Northeast is completely different from the Southwest, and you can travel and see different things. So yeah, as you made it through the buffet, the very difficult rapid fire questions. Congratulations.
It really put me on the spot. I was thinking, oh my goodness, the next question is coming.
I know that's what I do. All right. So every week I do a hike of the week segment, and this is you're my guest, so the honor is yours. I know you don't hike as much as some of the people I've talked to, but do you have a hike of the week for us?
I do indeed. So, it was actually when I was in the US, and it was a very spontaneous decision to go hiking up Mount Sugarloaf in Massachusetts. So it was super snowy. The snow was everywhere. I was wearing outrageous shoes. They were like mesh, like sneakers. And I was like, okay, these shoes are going to get wet the minute I step in the snow. But I was like, why don't I just do this hike? So me and my friend, we decided to just go up this mountain, going through all the bushes, stepping on all the rocks to get to the top. And it was so memorable because it was so last minute. And the views at the top were insane. Like it was nice and snowy. So for me, that's definitely one of the most memorable hiking experiences that I've had. But actually, you've really inspired me to, go out there and hike a lot more. I mean, I read your website quite a bit, and I love seeing your Instagram posts and your videos that you do as well. So that's really inspired me to actually start looking at hiking places around the UK or around Europe for sure.
Well, it sounds like a fun hike, and I'm glad that I could help inspire you. I do think that,
Yeah.
there's so much beauty in just the nature of the world, and if you're going to be traveling to all these places, even if you're not doing a crazy hike, if you can get out and into the countryside at least, and maybe a vineyard or something like that. If you're visiting France, that was just a random suggestion because I want you to go to a vineyard in France and tell me about it. But I just think there's a lot out there, and I used to be a city guy too, and I'm still a city guy. I live in the city, but I found that getting out into nature just really is helpful. Yes, we have a new segment. I brought this up just for you. It's called Ask the Fat Man, where now you get to turn the tables and you get to ask me questions.
Okay. I was actually thinking about this question a while ago. Whenever you're on a hike and you're maybe like halfway through a hike, do you ever get those days or those times where you're just thinking, oh, I wish I didn't do this hike. I wish I just could turn back and go back? Or are you the type of person who, when you go on a hike, you want to get to the end, you want to see everything around?
So yeah, I've definitely had those times. Usually it's kind of a weather related thing,
Right.
where I will turn around, and there's been hikes that I've done, and I've gotten there and I've gotten like halfway up and I'm like, no, either this is dangerous or I just don't
Yeah.
feel like sitting in the rain for the next 12 hours. And I've turned around at that point. If it's just kind of in my head and I'm like mentally like I'm just tired, I'll usually just kind of rest. Usually when I get tired like that, it's because I'm hangry and I need to eat, a snack, or I'm dehydrated and I need to drink some water. And I can usually push through to the end of it. A lot of the hikes that I go to, like the destination is going to be a peak or a lake, like up in the mountains or something like that. So there's an end that's really enticing to get to. So I think that keeps me motivated to get to that lake or get to that peak or get to that. I know people that will not stop no matter what, but I'm definitely one that will turn around if I feel unsafe, or if I'm not having it. The mountain's never going to move. It'll be there tomorrow. It'll be there for 1,000 years. So you can always go back and do it again. But yeah, a lot of times it's just a dehydration or a food thing. So I can usually push through that. But sometimes, yeah, you do turn around.
Nice. Do you mind if I ask another
You
question?
you can ask questions for hours. It's up to you.
So when it comes to hiking, it sounds a bit strange, but do you ever worry about the animals that you will find?
Sure. I don't worry as much as my mom does when I tell her
Right.
I'm going hiking, but um, you know, where I live, there are bears, there are moose, there are mountain lions. And yeah, I mean, it is something that can be scary. I haven't seen a mountain lion yet. I've seen a bear while I was in my car driving to the hike. and it ran across the street, and they're really fast. Luckily out here, the bears aren't, they typically try to stay away from people. But when you go, you'll go on a trail and there'll be, bear scat all over the trail. So, they're in the area, but they usually
Yeah.
hide and stay away. Moose are terrifying. I've seen moose a couple times, and moose are really aggressive, and they're huge. They're like, however big you think a moose is, it's twice as big. So like think of like a Ford Explorer and then double it.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so see,
wow.
yeah, and they're aggressive. And what people don't realize is if they have dogs with them, the moose think the dog is a wolf. So the moose will attack the dog. So
Oh,
you have to be really careful about that. So moose scare me. Otherwise, deer and all those things, I see them a lot and I really enjoy seeing them. But yeah, there is a little bit of a worry. I used to carry a knife, not that it would do anything. People should carry bear spray, especially if they're in Yellowstone or the Pacific Northwest, where there's like grizzly bears and more aggressive bears that will attack people. Bear spray, and I should probably carry bear spray. But another thing is if you hike in groups and you don't hike around, at night or sunset or sunrise, that's when the animals tend to be more active because they're eating. So if you hike in the middle of the day, try to hike in groups and make a lot of noise, because a lot of times what happens is people will kind of be really quiet while they're hiking and they'll sneak up on an animal, and the animal will be startled and think you're a predator, and then they'll try to attack you. So when I get like, there's those moments when you're hiking through the woods and like all the hair stands up on your neck, and it's like, I think it's a real like kind of sixth sense instinct, from back in the day. And at that point I'll start whistling or I'll start kicking rocks down the road just to make sure I'm making enough noise that any
yeah.
animal knows to stay out of the way. So yeah, there's some fear, but you get more and more comfortable as you go.
And my final question for you is, when you're hiking, if you get lost, do you continue just walking, or do you try to kind of logically go back and figure out your steps?
So that's a good question. I always have on my phone, I have a recording of where I've been going.
Oh,
So it
okay.
tracks where I'm going, and then that way I can easily kind of find my way back. But there have been times where I've lost my phone battery has died. But I bring a compass with me and I bring a map with me. So I have a general idea of where I'm going to be at, and try to make my way back. I'm not one that's going to get off the trail. I'm really pretty adamant about staying on trails so that we don't, damage, especially in the higher elevations. You don't want to get off the trail because you can damage the ground. So it's easy to just find that trail again. When it gets really hard, and what people don't realize about winter hiking and with snow, is snowstorms will come in and the snow will be blowing so fast that you can't, or hard that you can't really see where you're going. And then your footsteps will get covered in snow. So you can't like just turn around and be like, oh, that's where I'm supposed to go. And
Ah,
you can't see the trail.
oh,
So
yeah.
winter hiking is actually really dangerous in that regard. And it's important to have a compass with you, have a paper map if you can, and a cell phone. I always have the cell phone recording on the GPS to kind of keep track. But that's definitely a time where if you have to bail out and get back to your car as quickly as you can, because those winter storms can be brutal and they can come really, really fast, and it can get dangerous for sure.
No, that's good to know. I didn't even think about that, about how, with the footsteps and with the snow, it would just completely cover all traces of where you've been. Wow.
Absolutely. And it also happens like, there's a sand dunes national park in Colorado where you're walking up a sand dune, and you'd think like there's no trail or anything because it's just a sand dune, and you'd think that you're walking in sand, it's going to keep your footsteps, but it's typically so windy that your footsteps get blown away. Like 2 steps after you've taken it gets blown away. It's a weird phenomenon, where luckily there's nothing else around and you can just walk down the sand and find your way. But yeah, it's a interesting phenomenon to lose your footsteps and not know where you came from. So
No, that's good. I didn't even think about that. So that's definitely something that I'm going to keep in mind whenever I'm hiking for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, those were wonderful questions. I think you need to start a podcast. You can,
Oh, I would love to.
maybe we'll do a yin and a yang podcast together, where we'll talk about the UK versus the US one day. Thank you so much for joining me, though. I've had such a great time with you, and learning a little bit about this European travel. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed my time here for sure.
Everybody check out Yazz on thestrawberrysnaps.com and travel with strawberry snaps on Instagram.
Travel by Strawberry Snaps on Instagram, or the Strawberry Snaps on Instagram as well.
Perfect. Everybody go check her out. She's got some great information. And if you're looking to travel and if you're looking to solo travel, the tips in Europe also transfer over to the US. So if you're looking to do some of that stuff, check her out with all of her information. Yaz, thank you again. That is all the time that we have this week on Fat Man Little Trail, the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions or comments, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Fat Man Little Trail, or you can email me at fatmanlittletrails@gmail.com. I hope to see you all on the trail or in an airplane apparently very soon. And until then, happy hiking.